3 days ago, my CEO destroyed me in a boardroom, full of senior leaders, 6 months of work, gone, with just a casual wave of his hand. Now I'm standing in his office, hands shaking, knowing this conversation could end my career. Still upset with me? He asks like it's nothing. Every fiber of my being screams to play it safe. Say no, smile, move on, but I'm so tired of pretending. Yes, I hear myself say. I'm upset. The word hangs in the air between us. His expression shifts, surprise, definitely surprise. And then I do something even crazier. I tell him exactly why. No filter. No corporate diplomacy. Just raw, honest truth. What happened next shocked me. The fluorescent lights of the executive floor hummed with their usual indifference as I stood outside Marcus Chun's corner office, my tablet clutched against my chest like a shield. 3 days had passed since our confrontation in the boardroom, and the memory still burned fresh. His dismissal of my 6-month project, proposal in front of the entire senior leadership team. The casual wave of his hand as he'd said, "This isn't what we need right now. Sarah, not, let's discuss modifications. Not, interesting approach. But, just a flat rejection that had turned my months of late nights and sacrificed weekends into corporate roadkill." His assistant, Jennifer, glanced up from her desk with sympathetic eyes. "He's ready for you." I nodded, straightening my shoulders. Professional, calm, collected. Those were the words I'd repeated to myself all morning like a mantra. Marcus was standing by his floor-to-ceiling windows when I entered, hands in his pockets, gazing out at the city sprawl below. At 42, he cut an imposing figure, tall, perpetually composed, with silver threading through his dark hair that somehow made him look more authoritative rather than older. He'd built Chen Industries from a garage startup to a billion-dollar enterprise in 15 years, and he carried that success with the kind of quiet confidence that made people either admire or resent him. Sometimes both. "Sarah," he said without turning around. "Close the door, please." I complied, my heels clicking against the hardwood as I approached his desk. The office was exactly as you'd expect: minimalist, expensive, dominated by sleek black furniture and abstract art that probably cost more than my car. A single photo sat on his desk, Marcus with his daughter, both grinning at a beach somewhere tropical. "Sit." He gestured to the chairs facing his desk as he finally turned to face me. I remained standing. A small rebellion, perhaps childish, but I needed whatever height advantage I could claim in this moment. His lips quirked slightly, amusement or annoyance. I couldn't tell. He circled around to lean against his desk, arms crossed, studying me with those sharp, dark eyes that seemed to calculate everything. Still upset with me? The question came out casual, almost conversational, as if he were asking about the weather. And there it was. The opening I'd been simultaneously dreading and hoping for. I could have said what he probably expected. No. Of course not, with a professional smile, sweeping everything under the corporate rug where uncomfortable truths went to die. I could have played it safe, protected my position, kept my head down. Instead, I heard myself say, "Yes." The single word hung in the air between us, stark and unadorned. Marcus's eyebrows rose fractionally. Surprise, definitely surprise. I doubt many people answered him that honestly. Especially not a director of strategic development who was theoretically several rungs below him on the corporate ladder. "Yes," I repeated, my voice steadier now that I'd committed. "I'm upset that you dismissed 6 months of work without a real discussion. I'm upset that you didn't ask a single question about the research, the market analysis, or the projected ROI. I'm upset that you made me look incompetent in front of the entire leadership team, when you could have given me a heads up about your concerns beforehand." I paused, watching his expression remain carefully neutral. In for a penny, in for a pound. But mostly, I'm upset because I thought you valued honest feedback and innovation, and what you did in that boardroom sent the opposite message. Not just to me, to everyone in that room. Silence stretched between us. Outside, a siren wailed faintly from the streets below. Marcus studied me for a long moment, his expression unreadable, and I braced myself for the fallout. This was probably career suicide. I'd likely be escorted out by security within the hour. Then he did something unexpected. He laughed, not a mocking laugh, but something genuine, almost relieved. He ran a hand through his hair and pushed off from the desk, pacing toward the windows again. "You know," he said, his back to me, "I've had 11 meetings since Tuesday. Do you know how many people have actually told me the truth about how they feel?" I waited, unsure if the question was rhetorical. "Zero," he answered himself. "Jennifer told me everyone was fine with the direction we're taking. David from finance assured me morale was excellent. Even Tom, who I've known for a decade, smiled and nodded through our entire strategy session like a bobblehead." He turned back to face me. "You're the first person to actually answer that question honestly." I wasn't sure what to do with that information. "Most people value their jobs," I said carefully. "And you don't?" There was challenge in his tone now, but also curiosity. "I value doing work that matters more than I value keeping a job where I can't do work that matters." The words came out before I could filter them, but I didn't take them back. They were true. Marcus's expression shifted, something like respect flickering across his features. He moved back to his desk, but instead of sitting behind it in the power position, he took the chair next to mine, angling it to face me. "Sit," he said again, softer this time. "Please," I sat. "I owe you an explanation," he began, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. 3 weeks ago, I got information about a potential acquisition. Can't give you details yet, NDAs, legal complications, the usual mess. But it would fundamentally change our growth trajectory for the next 5 years. He met my eyes directly. "Your proposal was brilliant, Sarah. Truly. The market research was thorough. The financial projections were sound, and the implementation timeline was realistic. Under normal circumstances, I would have green-lit it immediately." I felt my chest tighten. But it would have committed us to a path that conflicts directly with the acquisition opportunity. Resources, focus, brand positioning, everything would have pulled in different directions. I couldn't explain that in the boardroom without revealing confidential information. And I couldn't pull you aside beforehand because I didn't fully understand the scope of the conflict until I saw your presentation. I absorbed this, feeling my anger deflate slightly, but not entirely disappear. "You still could have handled it differently. You're absolutely right." He didn't hesitate, didn't make excuses. I was focused on protecting confidential information and moving quickly. I didn't consider how my approach would affect you or what message it would send to the team. That was a failure of leadership on my part. The apology caught me off guard. I'd expected defensiveness, justification, maybe even counterattack. Not this kind of straightforward acknowledgement. "The damage is done, though," I said quietly. "The team saw me get shut down. They're going to think twice before bringing innovative ideas to you now." "Then help me fix it." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "I'm serious. You clearly see the problem. What's the solution?" I blinked at him. "You're asking me? You're the one who had the courage to tell me the truth. That makes you either the bravest or the most foolish person in this building, and I'm betting on brave." He smiled slightly. "So yes, I'm asking you. How do I repair this?" I thought about it, weighing my words. This felt like a test, but also like a genuine opportunity. "First, you need to address it directly with the leadership team," I said. "Not in some vague, we're all learning way, but specifically. Acknowledge that you handled my proposal poorly and explain, as much as you can without violating confidentiality, that it was about timing and strategic conflicts, not merit." He nodded slowly. "What else?" "Second, you need to create a mechanism for honest feedback that actually feels safe. Anonymous surveys don't cut it. People need to know they can disagree with you without tanking their careers. Like you just did? Like I just did, I confirmed. Except most people aren't in a position where they feel they can take that risk. I'm good at what I do, and I know other companies would hire me. Not everyone has that security. Marcus was quiet for a moment, processing. You thought about leaving? The question surprised me with its directness. I've thought about it, I admitted. Especially over the last 3 days. But I believe in what we're building here. Or at least, I want to. What would make you want to stay? I considered the question seriously. Knowing that my work matters. Knowing that when I bring ideas forward, they'll be genuinely considered, not just dismissed. And knowing that when mistakes happen, because they will address them honestly rather than pretending everything is fine. He stood, walking back to the windows, hands in his pockets again. I watched his reflection in the glass, saw him weighing something internally. The acquisition I mentioned, he said finally, still facing the city. It's going to require someone to lead the integration team. Someone who can think strategically, manage complex stakeholders, and isn't afraid to tell me when I'm making mistakes. My heart started beating faster. What are you saying? He turned around. I'm saying I want you to consider it. VP level, direct report to me, full equity package. The project won't be officially announced for another month, but I need to start building the team. I stared at him, speechless. This was not at all how I'd expected this conversation to go. This isn't compensation for Tuesday, he added quickly. This is me recognizing what you're capable of and what this company needs. Someone who will push back when necessary. Someone who cares more about doing the right thing than playing politics. I started, then stopped. My mind was racing. I need to think about it. Of course. He moved back to his desk, pulling out a leather folder. Take a week. Here's the preliminary scope, what I can share without the NDAs. Read through it. Think about whether it's something you'd want to take on. I took the folder, feeling its weight. What happens to my current projects? We'll transition them appropriately. And Sarah? He waited until I met his eyes. Regardless of your decision about this role, I am sorry. For Tuesday, for how I handled it, for not considering the impact on you. I can't undo it, but I can commit to doing better. I nodded, still processing everything. I appreciate that. And I appreciate your honesty. Even when it's uncomfortable. He extended his hand. Especially when it's uncomfortable. I shook his hand, feeling the firm grip. The calluses that reminded me he'd built this company with actual work. Not just strategy and capital. One more thing, I said as I turned to leave. The feedback mechanism we talked about? Don't just create another committee. Actually show up and listen. Have lunch in the cafeteria sometimes. Walk the floors. Ask people what's really going on, and then this is crucial. Don't punish them for telling you the truth. He smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. Noted. Thank you, Sarah. I left his office with my head spinning, the leather folder in my hands feeling like both an opportunity and a Pandora's box. Jennifer gave me a curious look as I passed, but I just smiled and kept walking. Back at my own desk, I finally let myself exhale. My hands were shaking slightly, adrenaline, relief, residual anger, excitement, all mixing together into something I couldn't quite name. My phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. Leadership meeting tomorrow, 10 a.m. I'll be addressing Tuesday's meeting. Wanted you to know. I typed back. Thank you. Then I opened the leather folder and started reading about the future he was offering me. 3 hours later, I was deep into the acquisition documents when my colleague Rachel appeared at my cubicle divider, eyes wide. Is it true? She asked in a hushed voice. Is what true? That you told off Marcus in his office? Kyle from marketing said he saw you go in there looking furious and come out with some kind of secret folder. I had to laugh. Office gossip moved faster than our internal email system. I didn't tell him off exactly. We had an honest conversation. About Tuesday? Rachel leaned in conspiratorially. Because honestly, that was brutal. I wanted to say something, but you value your job, I finished for her. Yeah, she looked guilty. I'm sorry I didn't back you up. Don't be. I get it. I tapped the folder. But maybe things are going to change around here. What do you mean? I thought about Marcus's offer, his apology, his request for help in fixing the culture. I mean, maybe it's time we all started being more honest about what's working and what isn't. Rachel looked skeptical. Easy for you to say. You're Sarah Chun, everyone knows you're brilliant. The rest of us are replaceable. You're not, though. I turned to face her fully. You're the best data analyst we have. Your work on the customer retention project was exceptional. But if you don't advocate for yourself, no one else will. She bit her lip, considering. Did something happen in that meeting? You seem different. Maybe I am, I said thoughtfully. Or maybe I just remembered that I have a choice in how I show up here every day. The next morning, the leadership meeting had a different energy than usual. People filed in quietly, taking their seats around the long conference table. Marcus sat at the head, his expression serious but open. Before we begin with the agenda, he started once everyone was settled, I need to address what happened in last week's meeting. The room went still. I kept my expression neutral, but I could feel people's eyes darting toward me. I handled Sarah's proposal poorly, Marcus continued, his voice clear and firm. Not because the work wasn't excellent, but because I had information I couldn't share that created a conflict with the proposal's direction. Instead of finding a way to communicate this respectfully and constructively, I simply shut it down. He paused, making eye contact with different people around the table. That was wrong. It was disrespectful to Sarah's hard work, and it sent the wrong message to all of you about how we value innovation and honest effort in this company. I apologized to Sarah publicly, as the mistake was public, and I apologize to the rest of you for modeling poor leadership. You could have heard a pin drop. Tom, the coup, cleared his throat. We all have moments where we could handle things better. This wasn't just a moment, Marcus interrupted gently. This was a pattern I need to break. How many good ideas have we missed because people were afraid to bring them forward? How much innovation have we lost because the culture doesn't feel safe enough for honest dialogue? He looked directly at me. Sarah asked me yesterday what I'm going to do differently. Here's my answer. I'm instituting monthly open forums where anyone can raise concerns or ideas directly. I'm creating a feedback mechanism that actually protects people who speak up. And I'm committing to being more present and accessible throughout the organization. Rachel, sitting 2 seats down from me, slowly raised her hand. Marcus nodded at her. What if the feedback is critical? She asked quietly. What if people point out things you're doing wrong? Then I'll listen, Marcus said simply. And hopefully I'll learn. Just like I learned from Sarah yesterday that honesty, even uncomfortable honesty, is more valuable than polite silence. The meeting continued, but the atmosphere had shifted. People seemed to sit up straighter, engage more directly. It wasn't a complete transformation. Those don't happen overnight, but it was a start. Later that afternoon, I found myself back in Marcus's office, but this time it felt different. Less adversarial, more collaborative. I read through the acquisition materials, I said, setting the folder on his desk. It's ambitious, risky. The integration challenges alone would be massive, but... He leaned back in his chair, waiting. But it could work. If we're strategic about it, if we communicate clearly, if we build the right team. I paused. I'm in. His face broke into a genuine smile. Yeah? Yeah, on one condition. Name it. When I think you're making a mistake, I need to be able to tell you. Directly, honestly, without worrying about repercussions. That's not a condition, Marcus said. That's literally why I want you in this role." We spent the next hour discussing the structure, the timeline, the key challenges ahead. It was exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure, the kind of conversation that reminded me why I'd gotten into this industry in the first place. As I was leaving, Marcus called out, "Sarah?" I turned back. "Thank you," he said, "for answering honestly yesterday, for not telling me what I wanted to hear. It wool." "Not better," he echoed, walking back to my desk. I realized something had fundamentally shifted, not just in my relationship with Marcus or my role in the company, but in how I understood my own agency. I'd spent so much time trying to navigate the unspoken rules, to be strategic about when to speak up and when to stay quiet, to protect my position and advance my career through careful calculation. But sometimes, the most strategic thing you can do is tell the truth. My phone buzzed with messages from colleagues who'd heard about the leadership meeting. Some were congratulatory, others curious, a few cautiously optimistic about what it might mean for the company culture. I responded to each one thoughtfully, then turned to the mountain of work on my desk. The acquisition project wouldn't start officially for another month, but there was plenty to do in the meantime. And for the first time in a long time, I felt genuinely excited about what came next. The following weeks brought changes, some small and some significant. Marcus started having lunch in the cafeteria weekly, rotating tables to talk with different teams. The first open forum was announced for the end of the month. And the energy in the office, that intangible thing that's hard to measure, but impossible to ignore, felt different. More engaged. More honest. It wasn't perfect. Change never is. There were still politics, still frustrations, still moments of miscommunication and misaligned priorities. But there was also a growing sense that things could be discussed, that problems could be addressed. That honesty wasn't a career-limiting move. Rachel stopped by my desk one afternoon, looking nervous but determined. "I took your advice," she said. "I asked for a meeting with Marcus to discuss the data analytics infrastructure. We need more resources, and I've been afraid to push for them." "How did it go?" He listened. Really listened. "We're meeting again next week to discuss implementation." She grinned. "Thank you for showing us it was possible." After she left, I sat back in my chair, thinking about that conversation in Marcus's office. About his question, "Still upset with me?" And my answer, "Yes." One word that had opened a door I hadn't known was locked. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is admit how you really feel. Sometimes honesty is the most strategic move. And sometimes when your CEO asks if you're still upset, the right answer isn't the comfortable one. It's the true one, because that's where change begins. Not with polite fictions or corporate diplomacy, but with someone finally saying, "Yes, I'm upset. And here's why." And then, if you're lucky, someone on the other side actually listens. The acquisition announcement came exactly 4 weeks later, just as Marcus had predicted. The entire company gathered in the main auditorium, all 300 employees crammed into a space designed for 250. People standing along the walls, sitting in the aisles. Everyone buzzing with speculation. I stood backstage with Marcus and the executive team. My new title still feeling strange on my business cards. Vice President of Strategic Integration. The promotion had been announced internally a week ago, and the reactions had been mixed. Some colleagues had congratulated me genuinely. Others whispered that I'd gotten the role because of my outburst in Marcus's office, though notably, none of them said it to my face. Office politics were alive and well, even in our new era of supposed transparency. "Nervous?" Marcus asked, appearing beside me. "Terrified," I admitted. "This is going to change everything. Not everyone will be happy." "Change never makes everyone happy," he said. "But stagnation makes everyone miserable eventually." You taught me that. I didn't teach you that. You did. Just not with words. He checked his watch. 5 minutes. You ready? I nodded, smoothing down my blazer. The plan was simple. Marcus would announce the acquisition of Brennan Technologies, a mid-sized competitor with complementary products and a strong international presence. Then I would present the integration roadmap, the timeline, and most importantly, how this would affect everyone's jobs and roles. That last part was what had kept me up for the past 3 nights. The lights dimmed. Marcus walked onto the stage to thunderous applause, the kind of response he'd earned through 15 years of steady leadership and quarterly bonuses. I watched from the wings as he commanded the room with effortless confidence. 4 years ago, he began, I stood on this stage and told you we were going to double our market share. You laughed politely, but you laughed. We just lost our biggest client, our stock price was tanking. And doubling market share seemed like a fever dream. Chuckles rippled through the audience. Today, I'm standing here to tell you we didn't just double our market share. We tripled it. And that's because of you. Your innovation, your dedication, your willingness to take risks and push boundaries. The applause was genuine now, proud. So today, I'm asking you to trust me again. To take another leap. Because we're not just growing anymore, we're transforming. The screen behind him lit up with the Brennan Technologies logo. As of this morning, Chun Industries has completed the acquisition of Brennan Technologies. This makes us the 3rd largest player in our industry, with a combined workforce of 800 people and operations in 15 countries. The room erupted, some with excitement, others with anxiety. I could see the questions forming on faces. What does this mean for us? Will there be layoffs? Will our roles change? Marcus let the noise settle before continuing. I know you have questions. I know change is scary. That's why I've asked Sarah Mitchell, our new VP of Strategic Integration, to walk you through exactly what this means for each of you. He gestured toward the wings. My cue, I walked onto the stage, my heels clicking against the wood, my heart hammering against my ribs. 300 faces turned toward me, some curious, some skeptical, some openly worried. Good afternoon, I started, my voice steadier than I felt. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Integrations are messy. They're complicated. And yes, they mean change for everyone in this room. I clicked to the first slide, a simple organizational chart showing both companies. But here's what this integration is not going to be. It's not going to be a hostile takeover. It's not going to be a cost-cutting exercise disguised as growth. And it's not going to be decided in secret by executives who don't understand what you do every day. That got their attention. Over the next 6 months, we're going to integrate these two companies in a way that preserves the best of both cultures, leverages our combined strengths, and yes, creates new opportunities for growth and advancement. I clicked to the next slide, the integration timeline. Here's how it's going to work. Phase 1, listening. For the next 4 weeks, my team and I are going to meet with every department, every team, every person who wants to talk to us. We're going to understand what you do, what you need, what you're worried about, and what you're excited about. I saw Rachel in the 3rd row, nodding encouragingly. Phase 2, planning. We'll take what we learn and create detailed integration plans for each department. Not top-down mandates, but collaborative roadmaps built with your input. Click. Next slide. Phase 3, implementation. This is where the real work begins. New systems, new processes, new team structures. We'll roll these out gradually, with training and support at every step. I paused, looking out at the sea of faces. Now, the question everyone's really asking, will there be layoffs? The room went completely silent. Here's the honest answer, we don't know yet. We've identified some overlapping roles. That's inevitable with any merger. But our goal is not to cut positions. Our goal is to grow. Brennan Technologies brings us new markets, new products, and new opportunities. Where there is overlap, we're going to look first at internal transfers, at creating new roles, at expansion. I clicked to a slide showing projected growth numbers. Brennan's international presence alone opens up 50 new positions we'll need to fill in the next year. Their product pipeline includes 3 major launches that will require expanded teams. This isn't about doing more with less. This is about building something bigger together. A hand shot up in the back. Marcus had insisted we take live questions, yes? I pointed to a young man I recognized from engineering. What if we don't want to change roles? What if we like what we're doing now? Then you communicate that clearly during the listening phase, I said. We're not going to force people into roles they don't want. But we are asking everyone to be flexible, to be open to possibilities. Change is coming whether we like it or not. Our job is to shape it together rather than letting it happen to us. Another hand. A woman from marketing this time. How do we know our feedback will actually matter? No offense, but we've done listening tours before, and nothing ever changes. I smiled. That's a fair question. And you're right saying we'll listen and actually listening are 2 different things. So here's what we're doing differently. Every session will have notes taken and shared publicly. Every concern raised will get a documented response within 2 weeks. And at the end of each phase, we'll publish a report showing what we heard and how it influenced our decisions. Accountability, Marcus added from the side of the stage. Sarah's going to hold us to it. And I expect all of you to hold her to it too. The questions continued for another 30 minutes. Some were practical about timelines and logistics. Others were emotional about job security and culture. I answered each one as honestly as I could, admitting when I didn't know something rather than making promises I couldn't keep. Finally, Marcus returned to the stage. I know this is a lot to process, he said. Take the afternoon. Talk to your teams. Come to the listening sessions with your questions and concerns. This is your company to help us build its future. As people filed out, the noise level was intense, excited chatter, worried whispers, heated debates already beginning. I stood backstage, feeling drained and exhilarated in equal measure. You did well, Marcus said, appearing beside me again. That question about whether feedback would matter, you handled it perfectly. I just told the truth. Exactly. He smiled. You ready for what comes next? The listening tour? I pulled out my tablet, where my assistant had already scheduled 47 sessions over the next month. As ready as I'll ever be. What I wasn't ready for was the intensity of those sessions. The first one was with the finance team, 12 people crammed into a conference room. All of them armed with spreadsheets and concerns about system integration. David, the CFO who'd told Marcus everything was fine, sat at the head of the table looking uncomfortable. Let's start with your biggest worry, I said. Pen poised over my notepad. Silence. People glanced at each other, waiting for someone else to speak first. Come on, I pressed gently. I can't help if I don't know what's wrong. Finally, a junior analyst named Priya spoke up. Our systems are completely incompatible with Brennan's. We've looked at their financial software, and integrating it is going to be a nightmare. We're talking months of manual data reconciliation, potential errors, audit risks. Thank you, I said, writing quickly. What else? The floodgates opened. Concerns about doubled workload during transition. Fears about whether Brennan's team would respect their processes. Frustration about past tech integration failures. One woman even admitted she'd been updating her resume because she assumed she'd be laid off. David tried to interject several times with reassurances, but I waved him off. Let them talk, I said quietly. By the end of the hour, I had 6 pages of notes and a much clearer picture of the challenges ahead. Here's what I'm hearing, I summarized. You need more resources during the transition, better communication about decisions that affect your workflows, and actual training on new systems, not just a PDF manual dumped in your inbox. Heads nodded around the table. You'll have a detailed response to these concerns within 2 weeks, as promised. In the meantime, Priya, can you put together a technical assessment of the system's integration challenges? I need someone who actually understands the problem, not just management-level assumptions. Priya's eyes widened. Really? Really? You clearly know what you're talking about. After they left, David lingered. You're giving a junior analyst that much authority? I'm giving someone who understands the problem the chance to help solve it, I corrected. Isn't that what we should be doing? He studied me for a moment. Marcus said you'd be different. I'm starting to see what he meant. The sessions continued, each one revealing new layers of complexity. Engineering was worried about conflicting product roadmaps. Sales was anxious about customer overlap and commission structures. HR was overwhelmed by the thought of harmonizing 2 different benefits, packages and company cultures. But something unexpected was also happening. People were opening up, sharing not just concerns but ideas, suggesting solutions, taking ownership. In the marketing session, Rachel proposed a joint campaign leveraging both companies' brands. In operations, a manager named Kenji outlined an efficiency improvement that could save hundreds of thousands during integration. This is what we've been missing, I told Marcus during our weekly check-in. People have solutions, but they've never felt empowered to share them. Because we never really asked, he acknowledged. We ran surveys and had suggestion boxes, but we didn't create actual dialogue. So how do we sustain this? Once the integration is done, how do we keep this momentum? Marcus leaned back in his chair, thinking. What if we made it structural? Not just temporary listening tours, but permanent feedback mechanisms built into how we operate? Like what? What if every quarter, leadership had to present their plans to the broader organization and take real questions? What if project teams had rotating members from different departments? What if promotions required peer feedback, not just manager evaluations? I pulled out my tablet, typing notes. That's ambitious. So is acquiring a competitor and integrating 500 new employees in 6 months, he pointed out. If we're going to transform, let's actually transform. Over the next 2 weeks, true to our promise, we published responses to every concern raised in the listening sessions. Some were easy, yes to more training resources, yes to clearer communication protocols. Others were harder. We couldn't promise no layoffs, but we committed to transparency about the process and generous severance packages if necessary. The response was cautiously optimistic. People appreciated the honesty, even when the answers weren't what they wanted to hear. Then came the first Brennan Technologies integration session, and everything got more complicated. I flew to their headquarters in Seattle, nervous about how they'd receive me. These were people whose company had just been acquired, who had every reason to be defensive and resistant. The conference room was packed, standing room only. I recognized their CEO, Janet Brennan, sitting in the back, arms crossed, expression unreadable. I'm not going to pretend this is easy, I started. Your company just got acquired. That's destabilizing, it's scary, and it probably feels unfair. You've built something great here, and now outsiders are coming in to change it. People shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the usual corporate speak they'd expected. But here's what I want you to know. We're not here to destroy what you've built. We're here to learn from it. Brennan Technologies has capabilities we don't have. You've cracked markets we've struggled in. You've built a culture that's produced incredible innovation. I clicked to a slide showing their achievements, product launches, customer satisfaction scores, employee retention rates. Our job isn't to make you more like us. Our job is to figure out how to combine the best of both companies into something neither of us could achieve alone. Janet's expression had shifted, slightly still skeptical, but listening. So I'm here to ask, what should we keep? What are the non-negotiables of Brennan's culture? What do you do better than us, and how do we protect and expand that, rather than destroying it in the name of integration? The room was silent for a long moment. Then a developer in the front row raised his hand. "Friday afternoon hackathons," he said. "We've had them for 3 years. Some of our best products came from those sessions. If you take that away, you'll lose something essential about who we are." I wrote it down. "What else?" The stories poured out. Their flexible work-from-home policy. Their mentorship program pairing junior and senior developers. Their quarterly innovation grants where anyone could pitch an idea and get funding to explore it. "These aren't nice-to-haves," I said when they'd finished. "These are exactly the kinds of practices we should be adopting company-wide, not eliminating." Janet spoke up from the back. "How do we know you mean that? How do we know this isn't just talk?" I met her eyes. "You don't. Not yet. But over the next 6 months, you'll see. And if we break these promises, I expect you to call us on it." Loudly, after the session, Janet pulled me aside. "That was different from what I expected," she admitted. "What were you expecting?" "Corporate BS about synergies and optimization. The usual script for making layoffs sound strategic." "There might be layoffs," I said honestly. "I can't promise there won't be. But they won't be the goal. Growth is the goal. And we can't grow if we destroy everything that made both companies successful in the first place." She studied me for a moment. "Marcus chose well. You actually believe this stuff, don't you?" "I do. And more importantly, I'm going to make sure we follow through on it." Flying back to headquarters that night, I looked out at the clouds below and thought about how far we'd come in just 2 months. From that confrontation in Marcus's office to this, a genuine attempt to build something better, something more honest, something that treated people like partners rather than resources. It wouldn't be easy. There would be setbacks, conflicts, moments where the old patterns tried to reassert themselves. But we'd started something. Something that began with a simple question: "Still upset with me?" And an honest answer that changed everything. And that, I was learning, was how real transformation happened. Not through grand strategies or corporate mandates, but through human conversations where people told the truth and actually listened to each other. The hard work was just beginning. But for the first time in my career, I felt like we were building something that might actually last.